You're watching Clean Skies News. I'm Tyler Souters in Reykjavik, Iceland, and joining me now is Frida Sigurdardóttir, who is Head of Innovation and Development at Reykjavik Energy. Frida, good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We're talking about a major innovation here, the CarbFix project, which is in a sense carbon sequestration, but with a dramatic twist here in Iceland.
Yes, we are actually planning to start injecting CO2 dissolved in water early 2010. And the CO2 is, or the origin is from the Hellisheiði geothermal power plant, or actually the steam we harnessed from the geothermal field. And we are going to take the CO2 from the steam and dissolve it in water and inject it into basaltic bedrock, where it will react with minerals in the basaltic rock and form solid carbonates. So the CO2 will be stable for thousands of years in the bedrock.
And theoretically, that is one of the major positives about this kind of project, in that there's no chance of CO2 leakage or escape if this is essentially turned into rock.
Yes, that's the idea. And of course, we need to monitor what happens and how fast the mineralization is going to take place. But that is the idea, yeah.
The importance of having this working with an active geothermal plant, it's not the fact that you need a generation source, it's the fact that the geology is exactly what you need, correct?
Yes, we have the basaltic rock, and also that, well, the CO2 is originated from the cooling magma under the volcano. So actually we are, and we have seen these reactions taking place in the nature. So the CarbFix method is to imitate what nature is actually doing already in the geothermal systems. But by drilling holes into the geothermal system and harnessing the power there, we are actually speeding up the CO2 emission from the field that otherwise would have taken place for a longer time. But we are going to inject it back again and try to mineralize it so it will be stable there.
Now, Frida, the project is still in the preparation phases, if that's the right term. How would you gauge success once it is up and running? Do you have a certain goal in mind, or is it simply proving the theory that this could in fact work?
That's actually the first step, to prove that the theory does work in the field. We know it works in the lab, but we are taking it out into the field in scale 1 by 1. And of course, in our backhead or in our minds, we are hoping to be able to use this at the Hellisheiði geothermal plant and other geothermal plants, but also that we might be able to export this idea, because Iceland is not the only place in the world where we can store CO2 underground. That is, of course, everywhere where basaltic rock can be found.
But that's a bit of a problem, because it takes a very specific geology to have the basaltic rock, and there are clearly international limitations on where you can do this.
Yes, but there are substantial basalt shields in, for example, India, the Deccan Plateau, the Columbian River basalt in the States, Hawaii, Siberia. So I think, if I remember it correctly, that 10% of the Earth's crust is basaltic rock.
Okay, so there is great potential there. There is, though, some irony to the fact that this project, the CarbFix project, is underway here in Iceland, yet your emissions from power generation are so low that CO2 storage isn't necessarily a priority here as it would be in the other places you mentioned, in India, in the States, or in Western Europe, where there's such a reliance still on coal-fired generation.
Yes, but still, well, we are doing this project in collaboration with our partners in the States and in France, and also the University of Iceland, and the company was willing to try to find out whether this was possible. And of course, even though the emission from the geothermal power plant is not high, we are willing to put some effort into find out whether it is possible to build or demonstrate them as near zero power plants. This is, you know, as you are aware of, green energy, and if we can do that, make that energy even more green, that's positive. That's positive for our image, and that's positive for science, and it's also a part of a social responsibility.
It seems there are two feedstocks, for lack of a better term, Frida. That is CO2, which is naturally part of the process, but also water. In some of the places you mentioned, specifically India or some of the sites in Africa, water is a scarce resource. It seems like that may be problematic down the road if that's such an essential ingredient to this kind of CO2 storage.
Yes, that's true, but we need to use the best environment to try the method. And if that proves to be successful, we are going to try to use seawater. And actually, one of the PhD students that are who's involved in the project is looking at that method. So if we would be able to use seawater in this process, then it would be much more easier to export the idea.
Frida, final question. What is your prediction about this project and maybe the next step beyond CarbFix?
Well, I'm so down to the earth. So I take one step at a time. But my hope is that this is going to be a success. And we are going to be able to build this setup and use it. Because how we are thinking about this is no rocket science. So if we are able to build a relatively cheap and not so complicated setup, then I would be happy.
Understood. Frida Sigurðardóttir, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. CarbFix project getting underway here in Iceland. I'm Tyler Souters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.